Document. Part 1. The galaxy was quiet, or at least it seemed that way. For decades, the Galactic Accord had kept the fragile peace between humanity and the Varnak Empire. It wasn't a perfect truce, but it was enough to stop the bloodshed. Humanity had given up some of its most valuable territories in exchange for safety, and though many felt betrayed by their leaders, they accepted it as the price of survival. But peace is a delicate thing, especially when trust is broken. Commander Ryan Carter stood on the observation deck of Moonbase Alpha 7, staring out at the endless blackness of space. His reflection stared back at him from the thick glass, his face lined with worry. He wasn't alone. Lieutenant Emma Hayes joined him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was younger than Ryan, but her sharp eyes and quick mind made her an invaluable second in command. "Anything new?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. Ryan shook his head. "No, just more of the same. Border patrols report strange readings near Sector 12, but nothing concrete. Command says we're overreacting." Emma frowned. "Overreacting? The Varnak have been testing us for months. You don't think this is leading somewhere?" Ryan sighed. "I don't know what to think anymore. Every time I bring it up, they tell me to stand down. They say starting a fight now would be suicide." Emma didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the stars. What if they're already planning something? What if they're just waiting for the right moment? Ryan didn't answer. He wanted to believe that the treaty would hold, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was coming. The Varnak weren't known for their patience, and humanity's recent advancements in technology might have tipped the balance too far for their liking. A sudden beep interrupted their conversation. Both officers turned toward the control panel, as a young technician rushed over. "Commander, we've got something," he said, his voice tense. Multiple Varnak ships detected entering restricted space. Ryan's heart sank. "How many?" "At least a dozen, sir, and they're moving fast." Emma stepped forward. "This isn't a routine patrol. They're up to something." Ryan nodded grimly. "Send a message to command." Tell them before he could finish. The lights flickered, and the room was plunged into darkness. Alarms blared overhead, and red emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the walls. The base shook violently as explosions echoed in the distance. "What the hell is happening?" Emma shouted, trying to steady herself against the shaking floor. "The Varnak," Ryan replied through gritted teeth. "They're here." The communications officer frantically worked to restore contact with Earth, but it was no use. The Varnak had jammed all signals. Ryan clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. He had warned them. He had told them this day would come, but no one had listened. "Sir, we've lost 3 outposts already," another officer reported. "Casualties are high." Ryan closed his eyes for a brief moment, steeling himself. When he opened them again, there was fire in his gaze. "Sound the alert. Prepare the fleet. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Emma placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're outnumbered, Ryan. This isn't going to be easy." He looked at her, determination etched into every line of his face. "Easy doesn't win wars, Emma. We do what we have to do." As the crew scrambled to prepare for battle, Ryan couldn't help but feel the weight of what was about to happen. The treaty was broken, and humanity's future hung in the balance. But one thing was certain. If the Varnak thought humanity would roll over without a fight, they were dead wrong. Document. Part 2. The attack came without warning, swift and brutal. The Varnak ships moved with precision, their advanced technology giving them an overwhelming advantage. Moonbase Alpha 7 was under siege, its defenses crumbling under the relentless assault. Explosions rocked the facility as energy blasts tore through walls and corridors. Smoke filled the air, and alarms screamed incessantly, drowning out the shouts of panicked crew members. "Commander." Ryan Carter clenched his jaw as he watched the chaos unfold on the main monitor. The once clear view of space was now obscured by debris, and flashes of light from enemy fire. His hands gripped the edge of the console so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Beside him, Lieutenant Emma Hayes worked furiously to coordinate what little resistance they could muster. "Shields are down to 20%, shouted one of the technicians, his voice trembling with fear. "We can't hold them off much longer." Ryan didn't respond immediately. He scanned the screen, analyzing the positions of the Varnak fleet. They were methodical, almost surgical in their approach. This wasn't just an attack, it was a message. The Varnak wanted humanity to know they were no longer bound by the treaty. "Divert all remaining power to the shield generators," Ryan ordered sharply, "and get me a status report on our fighters. Are they ready?" "Yes, sir," replied another officer, typing rapidly at her station. "The fighters are prepped, but we're outnumbered 3-1. Emma glanced at Ryan, her expression grim. "Even if we launch, it's not going to be enough. We need reinforcements." "I know," Ryan said, his voice low, "but reinforcements aren't coming. Not in time." Before Emma could respond, the doors to the command center burst open. A young pilot named Daniel rushed in, his face streaked with soot and sweat. "Commander, the hangar bay is taking heavy damage. If we don't move now, we'll lose the fighters too." Ryan nodded. "Then we move. Lieutenant Hayes, take charge here. Keep the base alive as long as you can. I'll lead the fighters." Emma opened her mouth to protest, but Ryan cut her off with a firm look. "This isn't up for debate. Someone has to buy us some time, and it's going to be me." Reluctantly, Emma stepped aside. She knew arguing would only waste precious seconds. "Be careful," she said quietly. Ryan gave her a small, reassuring smile before turning to follow Daniel back to the hangar. As he ran through the smoke-filled corridors, dodging falling debris and injured personnel, he couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The lives of everyone on this base and, possibly billions more across the galaxy depended on what happened next. In the hangar, the surviving pilots were already strapping into their ships. Their faces were pale but resolute, each one aware of the odds stacked against them. Ryan climbed into the cockpit of his fighter, the familiar hum of the engines calming his racing thoughts. Through the comms system, he addressed the squadron. "This isn't just about defending this base," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil around him. "It's about showing the Varnak that we won't go down without a fight. Stick together, watch each other's backs, and hit them hard. For humanity." The pilots responded with determined nods, their resolve hardened by Ryan's words. Moments later, the bay doors opened, revealing the fiery battlefield beyond. One by one, the fighters launched into space, joining the desperate struggle against the Varnak Armada. Back in the command center, Emma watched the battle unfold on the monitors. Her heart pounded as she saw Ryan's ship darting between enemy vessels, firing with deadly accuracy. The human fighters fought valiantly, their smaller crafts weaving through the larger Varnak ships like insects stinging a predator. But even with their bravery, the outcome seemed inevitable as the minutes dragged on. News reached Earth. Reports of the attack spread quickly, igniting outrage and fear among the population. President Laura Bennett stood before cameras, her face pale but determined. "The Varnak Empire has betrayed us," she declared. "They have broken the treaty and attacked our people without provocation. We will not tolerate this aggression. Humanity will stand united, and we will fight back." Across the galaxy, the message resonated. Factories ramped up production of weapons and ships. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to join cause the fragile peace was gone, replaced by a burning desire for justice. On Moonbase Alpha 7, Emma continued to direct the defense efforts, her voice steady despite the chaos. She refused to give up, not while there was still a chance. And somewhere out there, amidst the swirling dogfights and explosions, Ryan fought on, driven by hope and fury. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear: Humanity's patience had run out. Document. Part 3, the Varnic attack on Moonbase Alpha 7, was only the beginning. News of the assault spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of human space. People watched in horror as footage of burning outposts and fleeing civilians filled their screens. Fear gripped the galaxy, but something else began to stir a deep, unshakable anger. The betrayal cut too deep, and humanity wasn't about to roll over. On Earth, President Laura Bennett called an emergency meeting of world leaders. For years, nations had argued over resources, borders, and power. Old rivalries simmered just below the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. But now, faced with an enemy that didn't care about human divisions, those differences seemed small and petty. One by one, leaders set aside their grievances and pledged support for a united front. The United Human Alliance UA was born. Commander Ryan Carter's name became a rallying cry. His bravery during the defense of Moon Base Alpha 7 inspired millions. Though the base had suffered heavy damage, Ryan's leadership gave humanity a fighting chance. When he finally returned to Earth after days of relentless combat, he was greeted not as a soldier but as a symbol of hope. Yet Ryan didn't want praise or recognition. All he wanted was to make sure no one else had to endure what his crew had faced. Lieutenant Emma Hayes stood beside him during the UHA's first assembly. Her sharp mind and quick thinking had kept Moonbase Alpha 7 operational long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Together, Ryan and Emma became the faces of humanity's resistance. They worked tirelessly alongside scientists, engineers, and strategists to prepare for the battles ahead. One of those scientists was Dr. Alan Brooks, a quiet man with a brilliant mind. He had spent years working on experimental technologies that most people dismissed as science fiction. Now, with the galaxy at war, his work took center stage. In hidden research facilities scattered across the solar system, teams of engineers raced to upgrade humanity's outdated ships, fusion reactors, plasma cannons, and cloaking devices once considered impossible were suddenly within reach. But upgrading technology wasn't enough. The UHA needed more than weapons, it needed unity. Across colonies and planets, ordinary citizens stepped up to help. Factories once used to produce consumer goods were repurposed to build warships. Farmers donated food supplies to feed soldiers. Teachers turned classrooms into training grounds for new recruits. Even children pitched in, collecting scrap metal and organizing fundraisers. Humanity was coming together in ways no one thought possible. Back on Earth, journalists captured these stories, broadcasting them to inspire others. One reporter, Nathan Cole, traveled from planet to planet, documenting the sacrifices being made. His reports showed not just the destruction caused by the Varnock, but also the resilience of humanity. "We may be outnumbered," he said in one broadcast, "but we are not broken. This is our home, and we will fight for it." Despite the growing sense of unity, challenges remained. Supplies were running low, and losses weighed heavily on everyone. Some questioned whether continuing the fight was worth the cost. Protests broke out in major cities, with people demanding answers. Could humanity really win against an empire that had centuries of military dominance? Ryan and Emma saw the cracks forming, but they refused to let doubt take hold. Late at night, in a dimly lit briefing room, they pored over maps and data, searching for solutions. "We can't afford to lose faith," Ryan said firmly. "If we do, then the Varnak have already won." Emma nodded, though her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. "I know, but it's hard when you see how much we're losing. Every day, more lives are gone." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we honor them by winning, by making sure their sacrifice means something." As weeks passed, the UHA grew stronger. New fleets emerged, equipped with cutting-edge technology. Pilots trained relentlessly, learning tactics designed to counter the Varnic's superior numbers. Morale slowly improved as victories, however small, began to pile up. Skirmishes along the border showed that humanity could hold its own if only barely. Yet behind the scenes, whispers of betrayal lingered. Someone had tipped off the about Moonbase Alpha 7's weak points. Someone had helped orchestrate the attack. Ryan and Emma vowed to uncover the truth, even if it meant confronting enemies within their own ranks. For now, though, there was no time to dwell on conspiracy theories. The galaxy was at war, and humanity had chosen to fight back. Against all odds, they prepared for the battles ahead, driven by fury, determination, and the unshakable belief that they would prevail. Document Part 4. The United Human Alliance UA was ready to strike back. After weeks of preparation, humanity's forces had grown stronger, more determined, and better equipped. The time for waiting was over. Commander Ryan Carter stood in the war room, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. His eyes focused on one location, Epsilon Prime, a cluster of stars near the edge of human territory. It was a strategic point claimed by both humanity and the Varnak Empire, making it the perfect place for a decisive battle. Ryan turned to Lieutenant Emma Hayes, who was reviewing the final plans. "Are we sure about this?" he asked. "If we fail here, we lose more than just the fight. We lose morale." Emma looked up, her expression firm. "We don't have a choice. If we let them keep pushing us back, they'll take everything. This is our chance to show them we're not afraid." Ryan nodded. He knew she was right. The UHA couldn't afford to play defense anymore. They needed a victory, something to prove that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the Varnak operation. Iron resolve was their answer. The plan was risky, but clever, using cloaking devices reverse-engineered from captured Varnak tech. A small group of ships would sneak behind enemy lines and disable key communication hubs. Without coordination, the Varnak fleet would be vulnerable. Meanwhile, Ryan would lead the main fleet in a head-on assault, drawing the enemy's attention away from the sabotage team. It was a gamble, but if it worked, it could turn the tide of the war. As the fleet prepared to launch, Captain Olivia Grant walked into the briefing room. She was one of the best pilots in the UHA, known for her daring maneuvers and unshakable courage. Her presence always brought a sense of calm to the crew. "Ready when you are, Commander," she said with a confident smile. Ryan returned the smile. "Good. We're going to need every bit of skill you've got." Hours later, the operation began. The sabotage team slipped past Varnak patrols, their cloaked ships invisible against the backdrop of stars. Meanwhile, Ryan led the main fleet toward the heart of the enemy formation. The Varnak responded quickly, sending wave after wave of fighters to intercept them. Explosions lit up space as lasers and missiles crisscrossed the void. "Stay sharp," Ryan shouted over the comms. "Keep them busy." The battle was chaotic, but Ryan's forces held their ground. Pilots like Olivia performed incredible feats, weaving through enemy fire and taking out targets with precision. Their smaller, faster ships danced around the lumbering Varnak vessels, exploiting every weakness they could find. Back in the shadows, the sabotage team reached its objective. Led by Lieutenant Marcus Lane, they planted explosive charges on the communication hubs. "Charges set," Marcus reported, detonating in 3, 2, 1. A series of bright flashes erupted in the distance as the hubs were destroyed. Instantly, the Varnak fleet faltered. Ships began drifting aimlessly, unable to coordinate their attacks. Ryan seized the opportunity. "Now," he ordered. "Hit them hard." The UHA fleet surged forward, unleashing everything they had. Plasma cannons roared, tearing through enemy armor. Fighters darted between larger ships, targeting weak points. For the first time in the war, humanity had the upper hand. But the Varnak weren't done yet. Admiral Kale, the ruthless leader of the enemy fleet, rallied his remaining forces. His flagship loomed large on the battlefield, its weapons firing relentlessly. "Take out that ship," Ryan commanded. "If we can cripple their command, Win this fight. Olivia volunteered for the mission. I'll draw their fire, she said. You flank them from the other side. Ryan hesitated. The plan was dangerous, but there was no time to argue. Do it, he said finally, and come back in one piece. Olivia's fighter shot forward, dodging blasts as she closed in on the flagship. Her movements were unpredictable, keeping the enemy off balance. Behind her, Ryan and the rest of the fleet moved into position. When the moment was right, they struck together, unleashing a devastating barrage of fire. The flagship shuddered under the assault, its shields failing. One final shot pierced its core, and the massive vessel exploded in a blinding flash. Cheers erupted across the Cums as the remaining Varnock ships retreated. For the first time in months, hope flickered among the ranks of humanity. The Battle of Epsilon Prime wasn't just a victory, was proof that the Varnock could be beaten. As Ryan watched the debris drift away, he allowed himself a small smile. Against all odds, they had won. But the war was far from over. Document. Part 5. The victory at Epsilon Prime was a spark of hope in the darkness, but it didn't last long. The cost of the battle was too high for some to bear. Hundreds of ships had been lost, and thousands of lives gone forever. Families mourned their loved ones, and survivors struggled to cope with the weight of what they'd seen. The UHA had won the fight, but the scars ran deep. Back on Earth, the cracks began to show. While many celebrated the victory, others questioned whether it was worth the price. Journalist Nathan Cole traveled across the planet, capturing stories from those affected by the war. In one city, he spoke to a mother who had lost her son in the battle. He was only 22, she said, tears streaming down her face. Was it worth it? I don't know anymore. Nathan's reports were honest and raw, showing both the triumphs and the tragedies of the conflict. His articles sparked protests in major cities. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read, "No more war, and bring our people home." Some demanded an end to the fighting, while others called for harsher retaliation against the Varnock. The people were divided, and the UHA's leaders felt the pressure mounting. Commander Ryan Carter tried to ignore the growing unrest as he worked with Lieutenant Emma Hayes to plan the next phase of the war. But even he couldn't escape the doubts creeping into his mind. Late at night, when the lights were low and the hum of the ship was the only sound, he replayed every decision in his head. Had he sent too many soldiers to die? Could he have done more to protect them? Emma noticed his mood and sat beside him one evening. "You can't carry all of this alone," she said softly. "We're in this together, remember?" Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I just keep thinking about everyone we've lost, every life. It feels like it's on me." "It's not," Emma replied firmly. "You gave them a chance to fight back. You gave them hope. That's more than most leaders would do." Her words helped, but Ryan still carried the burden. He knew the war wasn't over, and neither was the suffering. The UHA needed to keep moving forward, no matter how hard it got. Meanwhile, President Laura Bennett faced challenges of her own. Opposition groups accused her administration of mishandling the war effort. Rumors swirled about secret deals and hidden agendas. Public trust was eroding, and Bennett knew she had to act quickly to restore it. She called a press conference to address the nation. "My fellow humans," she began, standing tall despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "This war has taken so much from us, our loved ones, our peace, our sense of security. But we cannot give up now. We are fighting for our survival, for the future of our children. If we stop, everything we've sacrificed will be for nothing." Her speech resonated with some, but others remained unconvinced. Protests continued, and tensions grew, even within the UHA's ranks. Whispers of dissent spread. Soldiers questioned orders, and officers debated whether humanity could truly win against the Varnock's vast empire. Amid the chaos, Dr. Alan Brooks uncovered something shocking. Hidden in classified files, he found evidence of conspiracy involving high-ranking officials who had secretly aided the Varnock before the war began. These traitors had provided intelligence that weakened humanity's defenses, making the attack on Moonbase Alpha 7 possible. When Ryan and Emma learned about the discovery, they were furious. "We've been betrayed from the inside," Ryan said, his voice cold with anger. "How many lives could have been saved if these people hadn't sold us out?" Emma clenched her fists. "We need to expose them. Everyone deserves to know the truth." But exposing the traitors wouldn't be easy. Powerful forces wanted the secrets buried, and revealing them could tear the UHA apart. Ryan and Emma vowed to uncover the full story, no matter the cost. Now though, they had to focus on the war. The galaxy was still at risk, and humanity couldn't afford to falter as the days passed. Ryan looked out at the stars, his resolve hardening. The road ahead would be difficult, but giving up wasn't an option. Humanity had come too far to turn back now.